And welcome back to an exciting video on breeding betta fish. If you don't know what a betta fish is, it is a Siamese fighting fish. That's the old name. We don't like to fight them. They're not really Siamese, and they are lovely little fish. They are a tropical fish, so you want the temperature way up there, so about 26 to 30 degrees Celsius. So that's Fahrenheit on the screen. There it is there for people that don't do Celsius. So in this video, I'm going to go through the basics of how to set up the tank and what to do once you get fry and what to feed them. So let's get started and go straight to our betta fishes. So for the betta fish that I've bred, I've used a tank around about this size, which is about a 20 to 25 litre tank. Doesn't really matter if you use a tank or a tub. Ideally, you just want it warm with balanced water. So I've also used a little tank like one of these, which is just a little custom old tank. And I've got the tank recessed in the main tank. And the reason for that, with the water level like that, is you want to have your conditioned female in there. So when she's showing her little eggs, like that little spawning tube there, she's almost ready to lay eggs. When the male is in the tank and he's got something like floating plants or a piece of polystyrene, anything like that to build his little bubble nest on, he will see she's ready. He'll get all excited, go back and forward, back and forward. Then he'll build a really big nest of bubbles. She'll get really excited too. And because the water level is just underneath the lip of this smaller tank, when she's ready, she's actually going to jump out. She gets so excited into the main tank with the male. And that is the easiest way of knowing when she's ready to spawn. She's not going to sort of be just dumped into a tank with a male. If she's not ready, he's going to attack her. If she's ready and he's not ready with the big nest of bubbles because he can't see her, he's probably going to, she's going to attack her. The main thing with them is making sure that he has got a big nest of bubbles. She is super conditioned and ready to lay eggs. And then once that happens, you've got about a day or so to get her back out before he goes crazy and chases her away. So in the wild, the females will live in open water. The males are in the shallower, densely planted areas, building a nice nest of bubbles, chasing all the other fish away and waiting for a female to breed with. So we're sort of recreating that, but we've still got the safety of her in a separate little tank so that she isn't in there prematurely. So that is the basics of this setup and how it works. Once she is spawned like that, we will take her out and then the male will raise the babies for probably about sort of 3 or 4 days. You can have him in there for a week or two, but he will probably start to lose interest after about a week or so. Then he might start getting cranky with all the babies darting away. In the wild, he has other fish to chase away, so he's got other stuff to do. And in captivity, if you did have little diver fish in there, they would pretty much eat all the babies, destroy the nest and everything like that. So captivity is totally different than in the wild with the way they breed. That's why we're getting the male out after about 4 or 5 days and then growing the fry up separately. So multiple ways of doing it. If you have a densely planted tank and you've got a few other fish in there, chances are he's not going to get too harassed by the fish and he's got something to chase away, and that could possibly work as well. This is just the easiest method, which is the less stress for him, less stress for her, and a good way of growing up the babies. So once the female has spawned, and you can see the eggs slowly dropping down on the screen now, you want to sort of just make sure that she doesn't eat all the eggs before they go into the bubble nest. When it's their first time like this pair, she's not too sure what to do, but usually once she lays a couple of eggs, she's completely paralyzed for a few seconds, and that gives the male enough time to actually realize what's happened, go down, pick the eggs up and put them in the nest. And then he'll display to her again. She'll do the whole process over and over and over until she doesn't really have any eggs left. Sometimes the male will get confused, wander off a little bit, and then she'll just completely wipe out half the eggs. It's sort of a normal thing that happens the first 2 or 3 times of spawning them. So if you're not successful the first couple of times, don't stress. Keep trying, condition the pairs separately again, introduce them a couple of weeks later, and eventually they're going to get it right. So this pair, this is their first time. I think we've only got about 50 or 60 babies, which is more than enough. Certain pairs you can have hundreds and hundreds of babies, but anything more than 1 or 2 is perfectly fine if you're just starting out. And at least it'll give you good practice on what to do. After a few days, the eggs are going to hatch, and the fry are just going to sort of sit there for a little bit in the bubble nest. Every now and then they're going to wiggle off and drop to the bottom. So the male's job now is to actually pick them up when they start wiggling off and popping them back in the nest. It is going to get a little bit annoying for him as more and more hatch, more are going to wiggle. He's going to sort of be frustrated that he can't pick them all up. And you just have to make sure the male at this stage doesn't end up eating all the eggs. If you notice him grabbing the eggs and not actually putting the fry back in the nest. What you can do at this stage is move the male out. The only problem with moving the male out too soon is all the little babies that keep falling to the bottom, they really need the oxygen of the water surface and the water tension. So if they're just sitting on the bottom too long, what will happen is they can actually suffocate and end up dying. We're at about day 4 now. The little fry are sort of darting around. They're in the bubble nest, sort of doing their thing. Dad is getting a little bit crankier at trying to keep them all in place. He's still building the nest with bubbles, and that's super important because that's somewhere for the babies to just sort of perch and hold on to. But every time he'll put bubbles in the nest, the fry are going to sort of drop and fall to the bottom. So there's only so much time the male's going to put up with this before he just completely ignores them, either moves off or decides to start eating them all just out of frustration. Round about this time, we're considering moving the dad out. Because it's his first time, we're just going to see how he goes. So again, maybe about 40, 50 fry, super hard to count them at this time, but even if you get a few, it's perfectly fine. So he's just going to spend all day, every day, swimming around, trying to pick up fry and put them in the nest. We've sort of decided at this stage, because he's sort of still doing the right thing, to just leave him be. But you can sort of make your own mind up whether to take the male out or not at this stage. So most of the fry, you're going to see the little white eggs, sort of egg yolky thing. Again, egg yolky thing, the little white belly. So this is day 5, the day after, obviously. They're sort of swimming around, not really knowing what they're doing, absorbing their little yolks, and soon they'll start sort of free swimming, starting to eat all the little bits and pieces in the tank. Dad is still freaking out, doing his bubble nest, trying to collect all the fry, which are just going everywhere. At this sort of stage, we've decided to take Dad out. So it was day 6. These are the fry. So a lot of them, obviously, when they fall to the bottom, they may not survive. A lot of them will spend their time up in the nest and in the plants and sort of stuff like that, or just on the water surface. But if Dad was in here, he'd be picking up all the ones off the bottom and placing them back in the nest. So they're sort of at that stage that they start free swimming, they'll be fine. You might lose a few fry if you take the male out prematurely, but that's sort of, yeah, for you to decide, I would say. But this is, what did I say, day 5? I'm sure we're at day 5. So this is day 6. So you can still see that they've still got a little bit of egg yolk to absorb. So, oh wait, we're day 7. I'm a day behind. But day 7, they are starting to look like fish. They've got a little bit of color to them. You're probably about a day or so off swimming at this stage. So all you have to do is just check your water parameters, make sure you don't have any ammonia spikes, anything like that. You shouldn't really be feeding them, but you do want to start culturing microworms and other foods like that. This is day 8, so the fry have absorbed all their egg yolk, and now they're sort of swimming around the tank or just sort of hovering there and looking at all the food to eat. So as you can see on the glass, we've got lots of little bugs and bits and pieces. So most of these are microworms, there's nematode worms, there's all sorts of wiggly things. If you have a close look at your tank, you should see all this sort of stuff on the glass and that. Most of these are pretty harmless to fry. Certain worms and stuff will wipe out baby shrimp and that, so you just want to make sure you've got the right types, and you'll have to Google what they are. We've also got a microworm culture started and starting to place it into the tank. That's why you don't really want to drink your aquarium water. But this is how big the fry are. So this is on a 5-cent piece. So this is obviously an Australian 5-cent piece because I'm in Australia, but the fry are super small. Way too small to eat baby brine shrimp or anything like that. So that's why you want to do microworm cultures, and a microworm is just a tiny little worm that you can culture. I'm not going to go into that, but if you Google the name, it'll explain everything to you online. But you want to sort of set this culture up about day 1 that they've laid eggs, and it only takes a few days for these to multiply. After you do that, you want to sort of go into feeding them baby brine shrimp, and these fry on the screen are cichlid fry, so not Betta fish fry, but it'll give you an idea of what you want to see with their bellies. You want the nice sort of pinky sort of red belly, which shows that they're eating the shrimp. So after about a week and a half of eating microworms, they'll eat the shrimp like this. And then once they've got little bellies like that, all you have to do is keep your water quality in check and grow them up, and then eventually get them onto processed foods. If you like this video, click the thumbs up so I know. Tried to keep a little bit short. Obviously, there's lots of information available. If you got any other questions or anything I've left out, just comment down below and I can reply to you. Otherwise, we will see you in the next video.